So for those who may not be familiar with the Canadian Liver Foundation, I'd like to provide you with a brief overview of who we are and what we do. So the CLF was established in 1969 and was the first organization in the world created to help people with liver disease. We are committed to promoting liver health and improving the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of liver disease through our 4 core pillars: research, education, patient support, and advocacy. And at this time, I'd like to welcome our first speaker of the evening. We have Dr. Diana Major. Dr. Major is an associate professor in clinical nutrition at the Department of Agricultural, Food, and Nutrition Sciences at the University of Alberta. Her research focuses on treatment strategies, including nutrition support interventions in chronic liver disease in both children and adults, as well as lifestyle modifications, patient outcomes, and evidence-based clinical diet and nutrition practices. Dr. Major is also the chairperson for the Canadian Liver Foundation's National Education Advisory Committee. So I'll be passing the mic throne to Diana Major.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hope everyone's well. So as I said, I'm a dietitian by training, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about nutrition and then some more about physical activity as well. So many of the common nutritional concerns in adults and children with liver disease include issues related to depleted skeletal muscle mass, and that's called sarcopenia, and that can affect the way an individual can participate in routine activities of daily life. So it's often common for individuals to have early fatigue, walking upstairs, sitting up and down, and walking moderate distances, because the muscles and the nutrients that arrive at the muscles are affected by the way the liver works. Another common issue can be coinciding with reduced muscle mass, can also be issues combined with obesity, and that's more common in individuals with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk about some of the dietary strategies that could be helpful for both of those conditions. Many patients with liver disease also experience differences in the way the nutrients are metabolized in the cells, so in the muscle and in the liver. So for example, protein breakdown can occur at an accelerated rate in the skeletal muscles of adults with liver disease. Fat metabolism can change in the liver, and that can result in excess buildup of fat in the liver, a reduction of lean body tissue in the muscles, and that can influence the ability of the person to participate in these activities of daily life. And so there are some dietary things that we can do to help with that, and that's to, for example, reduce how much simple sugars you consume, extra fat, and improve the quality of the type of protein that you eat. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And alongside of that, it's important to make sure you get enough micronutrients, particularly vitamin D and K in liver disease. So vitamin D is the sunlight vitamin, and in Canada, it's very difficult to get enough sunlight, even enough vitamin D from making vitamin D in the skin in the summer, even when it's hot. And so vitamin D is a nutrient that's at risk, and when you don't have enough of it, it can make an individual who has a liver problem experience more severe disease expression when you have suboptimal status. And on top of that, as you know, vitamin D is not only the sunshine nutrient, but it's really important for healthy bones. And so that's also really important to consume enough of that, or supplemental vitamin D, and we're going to talk about that as well. So along the lines in this picture, I just wanted you to see that these are pictures of muscles with CT and of fat in an adult patient with sarcopenia. This one on the left is for a patient who is waiting for a transplant, and this is for a picture of a person after liver transplantation. Here you can see in the red, these are all really important abdominal, skeletal muscles here, both the psoas muscle and the paraspinal muscles. So in a healthy person, you would see a lot more red in this CT scan than you do here. This person has sarcopenia. The magenta is the fat, the subcutaneous fat. And you can see that it doesn't really change. If anything, it might look even smaller after liver transplant. In other words, after having a transplant, it's possible that your muscles may still continue to experience problems with reductions in the skeletal muscle mass. So it's something to consider about, because it's not just pre-transplant, but it's also post-transplant that a lot of individuals with chronic liver disease can experience this reduction in skeletal muscle mass, and that can affect early fatigue and the ability to do activities of daily life. So when it comes to nutrition, we want to make sure that we try to promote or suggest dietary changes that help keep your body weight in the healthy weight range, but also at the same time to try to optimize your skeletal muscle mass so that you won't have as much problems with these activities of daily life. And then we want to talk to individuals about needing vitamin D supplementation. Canadians don't get enough vitamin D in their diet because it's mostly found in vitamin D fortified products such as milk. You can find a little bit in margarines and a little bit in eggs. But as I mentioned before, we don't get enough with the sunlight. And so supplementation, not only in Edmonton, but even in Toronto, is warranted in the winter months for the general population, and for 12 months of the year in individuals with liver problems. From a macronutrient point of view, we want to make sure that we give enough energy, or recommend that people eat enough food to meet their nutritional needs and prevent muscle breakdown to meet those. And we will recommend high energy intakes for someone who have cholestatic liver diseases, who are jaundiced, for example, because they may not absorb their fat calories efficiently. For someone with a chronic liver disease, such as NAFLD, where they don't have jaundice, but they still have changes in their liver function, then they need to eat a diet that's similar in calories to the population who don't have liver disease, but they need to eat protein that's high biologically available. And that can be both plant-based sources of protein and animal sources of protein, but we need to focus on plant proteins, for example, that are considered high quality, such as soy-based proteins. There are some other amaranth, for example, is a good source with complete amino acids for gluten-free grains, for example. So important to make sure that when you eat a plant-based diet, that you eat a wide variety of different plants from the food groups, from both grains and from fruits and vegetables and from nuts and seeds. The other thing that's important is in liver disease, you want to avoid long periods of fasting. So those diets that talk about, fasting for 18 hours a day are not for you. Fasting actually in liver disease can result in you using more of your skeletal muscle mass for energy generation. And so if anything, it's okay to fast, 10 hours, eat your dinner between 6 and 8 p.m. at the latest at night, and then not eat until the next morning after 6 a.m. That's perfectly fine. That's within the normal healthy physiology and something that an individual with liver disease can tolerate. But longer periods, so in those fad diets that talk about fasting for 18 hours, that's really not the best choice, because it can result in acceleration of lean body mass loss in a person with liver disease. We want to make sure that if you have a cholestatic liver disease like your jaundice, that you do eat and focus on plant and animal sources of protein, and you have higher protein requirements to try to prevent that condition of sarcopenia. So it's really important that at least a quarter of your plate is filled with either plant-based sources of protein like nuts and seeds. Lentils are good sources, or if you eat meat, then to make sure you eat a wide variety of salmon, beef, chicken. All of those are really good for you. If you are sicker and the doctor tells you you have encephalopathy, which is a condition of high ammonia levels in your blood, that might be different. And then you may have to be careful of how much protein you eat. So that would be a condition where you'd be consulting your dietitian and your doctor about that. And eating high quality proteins means that you can get more of the what are called, here I've listed them, they're called BCAA, so branched chain amino acids. Those are really important for the skeletal muscle in order to build. So you can get those in plant-based high proteins like soy-based proteins, for example. Nuts and seed have them. And then animal-based proteins like chicken, beef, or pork are good sources of those as well. So there definitely is evidence that routine vitamin D supplementation between 1,000 and 2,000 IUs per day really helps in a whole variety of liver diseases. It helps prevent progression or may delay the progression of fibrosis, for example. It's not going to prevent you from having liver disease, but it may slow down the rate of progression of that. And so there is evidence that daily supplementation is really important. Vitamin K is also really important because individuals with many liver diseases may have poor bone health to go along with that depleted skeletal muscle mass. So vitamin K is found in green leafy vegetables, orange yellow vegetables, and so it's also found in meat, for example, and that's a really important nutrient to help make sure that your bones are optimal in terms of the bone mineral density, and also for clotting, because some patients with a liver disease can have problems with clotting in their blood, and so making sure you have the right amount is important. If you're on an anticoagulant, it's really definitely important to talk to your RD and your doctor. We don't necessarily recommend supplementing extra K in your diet through a vitamin pill, like I've mentioned about vitamin D, but certainly eating green leafy vegetables are important. And you'll also get lots of vitamin E as well, which is an antioxidant, which will help fight off oxidative damage that you might experience with liver disease as well. So a diet where you've probably seen the new plate for Canada's Food Guide, half of that plate is fruits and vegetables. And that's really important to make sure you get enough fruits and vegetables that are of the dark green leafy and the orangey yellow color, because they're very good in terms of helping your liver deal with the oxidative stress you can get with liver disease. So in NAFLD, because this is the silent liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or you may have it heard about in the media called fatty liver disease, that's pretty highly prevalent in North America, especially in individuals who are overweight or obese. And some of the dietary things that contribute to making you have a higher risk for getting NAFLD is like diets that are full of sugar sweetened beverages. They're full of high fructose corn syrup, and that causes the liver to upregulate its synthesis of fat. And then if you eat in energy excess, that can mean that you can produce so much lipid by upregulating it through the consumption of these type of sugar sweetened items that can make things worse. Also, foods that are high in glycemic index, like donuts and pies that have low fiber contents, can also contribute to an upregulation of fat in the liver. And that's something that's, when you have a high fast food intake, can be an issue. So even, again, individuals with NAFLD have higher saturated fat intakes. That can contribute to making the liver be exposed to too much fat as well. And typically individuals with NAFLD have low intakes of those healthy fats like avocados, nuts and seeds that I mentioned, that are also good to help fend off the loss of lean body mass. And they often have really low intakes of vegetables, which is what Health Canada is promoting for a healthy liver. And so there is evidence that we should, as a population in Canada, to help protect your liver, to try to reduce or avoid sugar sweetened beverages and processed foods, because they are associated with high fructose corn syrup intakes. And so when you go to when you travel to other countries like the US, a lot of times you can see that if you go to McDonald's, you ask them for milk and they go, milk? They want to offer you, these 16-ounce Coke beverages to go along with their Happy Meal. And that doesn't make the liver very happy for kids to drink those sugary beverages. So generally speaking, the Heart Association recommends that for kids under 2, you should avoid sugar sweetened beverages. That doesn't mean that a child can't drink fruit juice, because in the picture here, it looks like I'm saying no fruit juice. I'm talking about sugar sweetened fruit juice. So when you have additional sugar added to it, that's a concern. And it's better to eat a piece of fruit over juice, but you can still drink juice. 4 ounces a day is perfectly acceptable for an adult with a liver issue, but more than that can result in excess sugar deposition and lead to problems with fat. So here's just, again, another slide just to show that individuals who have a fatty liver, NAFLD, typically have high levels of saturated fat intake. This is some Toronto data from U of T. They often have really low intakes of vitamin D. Their calcium intakes may be low, and their magnesium levels may also be low. So if you don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, you won't get a good sources of magnesium in the diet. So generally speaking, for NAFLD in terms of the diet, you'll probably have heard that trying to promote weight loss is the best thing to help the liver recover from having a fatty liver. And so the low calorie diets are often recommended to promote weight loss. And this one just lists that there's lots of evidence for that. But the hard part about that is losing weight and keeping it off. In fact, for the weight loss industry, that is their biggest challenge. Anybody who discovers this and can bottle that into a pill is going to be a multimillionaire. So because of that, and especially in children, weight loss is not necessarily a good thing for a child with liver disease because they're growing still. It doesn't teach the machinery in their enzymes in their liver how to synthesize the right amount of catabolic enzymes if you restrict calories. So more recently, people have been talking about, let's try to keep your body weight the same, like your intake stable, achieve stability in your weight, whatever that weight is, and then let's change the profile of what you're eating to a healthier profile of where you're eating more fruits and vegetables, reduce the consumption of sugar sweetened beverages so that you get rid of high fructose corn syrup in the diet, focus on cooking at home if possible, or frozen food that doesn't have these extra additives added to it. So like frozen vegetables are okay to use if you, in the wintertime, if you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That's an issue in Edmonton for sure. And to really focus on trying to keep your weight stable. And we call this an isocaloric approach. So that means if you're not gaining weight, you're not eating energy excess. Maybe your weight would be better at a lower body weight, but let's first change the quality of what you eat and then work on portion sizes to decrease body weight after that. And of course, you really do need to talk to your RD or your doctor about what's the best dietary approach for you to take. But I am going to talk about some dietary approaches like the Mediterranean diet, which has been shown to be doable and also healthy for the liver. So this is just a fancy diagram of the liver, but I just wanted you to see that if you eat a diet high in fructose corn syrup, you can affect the way insulin works in your body. You can affect the way energy is metabolized, because when you have NAFLD, you can have problems with the way energy is used. It's very inefficient, can contribute to insulin resistance, which can impact, the liver cells. It can also cause inflammation, oxidative stress. And so there are lots of dietary components besides reducing high fructose corn syrup that we can consider. We can consider increasing the intake of polyphenols. Like you probably have heard blueberries, for example, although they seem like they're sweet, blueberries also are full of polyphenols, which are antioxidants that have been shown to reduce oxidative stress in the liver and help with the machinery to make energy metabolism or breakdown of nutrients more efficient. Vitamin D for sure is a nutrient that helps with inflammation in the liver. And so optimizing those fruits and vegetables on your plate and really focusing on those can help with the oxidative stress. And then there's fat type, because I mentioned saturated fat, like in a bacon or eggs, can be not that great for your liver. But if you, for example, eat a diet higher in omega-3s, so salmon, for example, and you have a salmon that has crushed bones in it, that has a good source of calcium, those are really important. Omega-3 fatty acids are really important for optimizing the way the liver works. It helps the membranes work well, and that helps you metabolize your energy better. So here is it's what's called the Mediterranean food pyramid. And you can see some of the foods that I've been talking about are present here. They've, fish is present, lots of green leafy vegetables. So here's the fish, the green leafy vegetables, and the fruits and vegetables, and then the nuts and seeds. In the lower, there's a really strong importance of those kinds of foods. So think of your plate, half of it fruits and vegetables, and then a quarter of the plate is going to be represented by either poultry or fish or beef, if you like, or if you want to eat a plant-focused diet, then that would be lentils, nuts and seeds, for example, which would be really important. And then another quarter of your plate should be focused on whole grains. But things like cheese, high-fat yogurts would be on the smaller end. So a low-fat yogurt is perfectly okay in the protein group. It's a really good source of vitamin D. Even a Greek yogurt, which is a bit higher in fat, is okay as well. That is saturated fat. But if it represents 1/4 of your plate, like that's how much you're having for in a particular day, then that's perfectly okay. I don't, generally speaking, recommend wine, for example. It's full of polyphenols. The Mediterranean diet does have wine as a recommendation. So that's a personal choice. And the Liver Foundation has recommendations of what the maximum amount should be. But in the Mediterranean meal pattern, they do talk about wine, but they think of that as a source of polyphenols, just like the extra virgin olive oil that they cook with, as a really good source of polyphenols. And so from this meal plan perspective, it really is about antioxidants and upregulating your emphasis on fruits and vegetables in the diet, and then countering that with high fiber grain sources and plant proteins and animal-based proteins that are of high biological quality. When it comes to other vitamins, most of the evidence really is about vitamin D and vitamin E. You got to be careful about when you choose a vitamin supplement, if you feel that you need to take one for like a general multivitamin, not to choose one that has high levels of vitamin A. You definitely want it to be in, less than 10,000 IUs in that supplement. Too much vitamin A is not the greatest. Personally, I think you can get a lot of your nutrition, with the exception of D, in food, in eating a Mediterranean meal pattern, or a meal pattern that has half the plate full of fruits and vegetables. And this is just showing where you can get vitamin D. So yes, in salmon, definitely. You can get some vitamin D. You can get in fortified juices, but again, be careful, 4 ounces a day, and make sure it's not a sugar sweetened. You don't get a whole lot of vitamin D in cheese. You can get some in yogurt, but you have to read the food label, because not all yogurts are the same. Yogurts that are marketed for kids often have D added to them, and then it's variable depending on the source. You can get plant-based beverages. There's a lot of soy beverages that are vitamin D and calcium fortified out on the market. There's almond milks that also have vitamin D and calcium fortified in those as well. So although this is not included in the picture, there's quite a few ones. So if you eat a plant-focused diet, those are perfectly good choices. But look at on the food label to make sure it says that vitamin D is added. So here is the picture of Canada's food guide that I've been talking about. Half fruits and vegetables, those are full of antioxidants. 1/4 of animal sources and plant sources of of protein, and then another quarter of your plate being full of high fiber, whole grain options. So when it comes to making lifestyle changes, so lifestyle changes are affected by your activities of daily life and what you do. So Health Canada recommends try to do more cooking at home. But you know, there's a lot. We did a survey of parents of children who had NAFLD, for example, and one of the biggest things that was quoted as a factor that influences lifestyle change was the lack of time. A lot of parents talk about, like, if they try to get their child to eat more healthy, that it takes up a lot of time, and then they sacrifice like after school activities. And vice versa, those that sent their kids to school activities talked about how food preparation is impacted and eating healthy is impacted. But one of the biggest things that came across is that as a family, you need to walk the walk with your family member who has liver disease. If it's not a group effort, then the individual, it's going to be hard for them to make the lifestyle change they need to do. So when it comes to physical activity or activities of daily life, it's important that the whole family gets involved. Same thing with the foods we eat. Special diets or a separate diet than what the family eats is not really in the best interest of a person living with liver disease, because it's almost impossible to make the changes you need dietary wise and physical activity wise unless the whole family is committing to changing the way they eat. And so walking the walk is important to do. That. So that includes for the role of physical activity. I just want to mention a couple of things about physical activity, about muscles, because I'm studying the way muscles look in liver disease. Remember I told you about how sarcopenia I showed you those fancy CT pictures. But one thing we're starting to see in kids who have liver disease is the type of muscle fibers they have are different between the kids with liver disease that get sarcopenia and those who don't. And this is mirrored in the adult literature as well. So these type 1 fibers, patients with low muscle mass often have very low amounts of type 1 muscle fibers. And so they're the individuals with liver disease that experience that early fatigue with like walking upstairs, sitting up and down. And we're really trying to think of dietary approaches and exercise approaches that might be helpful to help compensate for this. And so resistance exercises, for example, may be a good approach because there are different types of muscle fibers. There's 2A, 2D. Someone with sarcopenia has much lower levels of type 1 and this 2A type of thing. And so resistance activities, like for example, walking, perhaps using light weights or even resistance bands might be helpful to kind of help pre-program your muscles a little bit to go, oh, okay, I need to work on these low impact type of exercises, you know, because my muscles get fatigued early, and I need to combine that with a complex carbohydrate intake with, you know, whole grains before I exercise, maybe a couple of hours before, with some protein, with a high biological protein. So maybe that could be cheese with whole wheat crackers, for example, milk with whole wheat crackers with a little bit of fish to go with it if you like it, or cheese. But it's important to think about this as more about activities of daily life. So I'm not going to say that you should go out full out and do an exercise regimen, but you need to combine some of the activities of trying to walk more, walk up and down stairs more, with a pre-meal, with a pre-snack, maybe an hour or two before, that gives you the energy to do that. And that will help the machinery in your muscles start to think about, well, okay, good, you're giving me good nutrition, and now you're trying to teach my muscles to be better about moving. And over time, you can increase your physical activity. So not an exercise program per se, but increase your physical activity with kids and with adults to help pre-program these muscles. And that's what we're doing in a pilot ongoing trials. They watch videos that we've made. They do some different activities to get their muscles moving more. And that's really, really important to combine that with the kind of nutrition I was talking about. So ways that you might want to do that is you could take the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe you can take a combo, walk up one flight of stairs if you haven't been doing that for a long time, then take the elevator to the 6th floor. Park your car a little bit further away. So if you're in a parking lot like I am, I park as far away from the entrance that I'm going in, so I walk more. Walking your pets outside is great, but in Edmonton, -40. I have cats, so one of my cats thinks he's a dog, and he will walk on a leash, but not when it's -40. Even with the little booties can't do it, but trying to like walk more. And then in a non-COVID world, I would have told you to go to the shopping mall and walk in there. But if you're going to do that, wear a mask and follow whatever public health guidelines there are. You can just, dancing is fun. Kids love to dance and move around, but with your partner, you could put on your favorite music and just dance in your living room. Anything to get your body to move a little bit more. And these are all low impact type of physical activities. Start small, 5 minutes, and build yourself up, to 10-minute type of walks. Nobody loves household chores. As I mentioned, I have a lot of cats, so I do a lot of vacuuming, but vacuuming does offer you low impact physical activity. So if you've got kids who leave crumbs on the floor like I do, and cats with cat hair, vacuuming is a daily activity in my house, and it gets you to move more. And so those are other ways. And again, so have your lunch, have a lunch with mixed fruits and vegetables with whole grain. Maybe make a sandwich with fish inside if you like it, with a lettuce, and drink that with milk. And then an hour or so later, do some of do the house cleaning like you need to do, or whatever. In the evening, do a little bit of house cleaning, because it gets you moving and it teaches your muscles how to utilize those nutrients better to make it more efficient, so that you don't have reductions in lean body mass, and your muscles can get the energy it needs in order for you to move around more. And so it's just one step at a time, literally. So here, although I'm probably going to turn the sound off, I just want to show you even things as simple as, oops, that didn't work, sorry. Wrong button. Even though I'm just trying to take the sound out, and I apologize for, you just fix this. You can do things at home, even with, so this is from a video for a trial that we do in adults. And you can see that, well, this is my RA and my grad student. They do simple activities in these videos by sit to stand. So they sit in a chair, they make sure they put their, they use a chair with the arms, and they go up, they stand and go up and down in rotations of, like 5 or 10. So they go very slowly and do that. And you can do that at home. And even if you just do it twice, you note that she's just sitting, her hands are on her knees. She's trying to get herself a good position. And then she's just gonna do the exercise here. Okay, sorry, so there you go. So see, you can do simple things like that at home. Now that looks pretty boring against a gray wall. I'm not gonna deny it, but it's a way like you can sit with members of your household, and you can just do simple steps up and down like that, sit to stand, and do them slowly. You don't need to be trying to do repeated numbers. Or you can do, for example, you can do it if you're a child, you might try to do it a little bit more robustly, but not necessarily need to have to put all that effort. Sure, you can buy a yoga mat and you can do like these kind of push-ups too, but that's actually my daughter doing the push-ups and giving that. But even walking, even walking, like she's doing a 6-minute walk test outside the research unit I work in. But even walking inside your house and simple things like going up and down the stairs, it's not about how fast you're doing it. These are some functional tests she was doing in one of my studies, but it's about just doing simple things. You can buy resistance bands, they cost like $2. You could do simple things like this at home too, but not necessary to have a yoga mat to do it. You can just walk up and down your stairs. You can go out for a walk and do simple things, and it'll help train train your muscles about the way to work in a different way, and then you can combine that with some of the snacks that I've been talking about. And so these are just showing that there's a variety of different types of exercise you can do, and it's a little bit complicated of a slide. Sure, you can ride a bike, you could do like light swimming, but the easiest thing at home with no expense is walking, vacuuming, going up and down the stairs, and some of these sit to stand things. You could even do things for balance, because here's a chair and you could put your leg out to the right and just do a little bit of those in the winter time as well. And there's definitely lots of evidence to show when you combine trying to eat that half a plate with fruits and vegetables, with the plate that looks like that, combining it with some low movement exercises, that your muscles can get stronger. Your liver benefits from that because you're reducing that high simple sugar and high saturated fat intake, and you're combining it with some activities that can improve your balance and your endurance, and that can help your liver handle the substrates, especially in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it is important to focus on eating, making modest changes, and as a family to try to really emphasize fruits and vegetable intake. And there are going to be some people that tell me that some vegetables give them a tummy ache. So that can sometimes be high FODMAP vegetables like cauliflower. Sometimes people tell me they can't eat, or broccoli, but there are lots of lower FODMAP vegetables that you could eat. And then, you know, you could just slowly increase those type of vegetables over time by maybe just starting with a spoonful mixed in of those other types so that you get a variety. So it's about making one change at a time and moving forward. So maybe your first goal is, I'm going to add fruit. If I don't eat a lot of different fruits and vegetables, I'm going to add one new one a week, and I'm going to do that for 6 weeks straight. And I'm going to eat the other ones that I always have been eating, and I'm going to add one new one a week, and try to make those either orangey or red new ones or green leafy, because those are the ones that are really good choices. Maybe you'll switch to, if you eat white bread, maybe you'll switch to 60% whole wheat to make a change. And if you commit to making those kind of changes in combination with participating in household activities for getting routine physical activity, and you do the same thing as a family, you commit to increasing what you do every day by maybe 5 minutes, or do it 3 times a week, you'll see that will really help you feel less fatigued, because that is a big problem with individuals with liver disease, early fatigue, and that's because your muscles aren't getting the nutrients they need because the liver's not metabolizing it. So I'm going to stop there. And this is just a lot of my collaborators. I do a lot of research here at the Solary Children's Hospital with kids with liver disease, and I do research as well at the kids in Toronto. So I'm happy to answer any questions that someone might have. Feel free to ask me.
We did have a few questions pop up, Diana, in terms of dietary kind of approaches and different aspects of it. Some of them, of course, are depending on liver disease, but I guess just generally to start off the discussion, somebody who's for the first time or learning about liver disease, and they're looking for some of the general health tips that can help them either prevent being at risk for liver disease or even help them, whether it's with weight loss. If you were just can name maybe your top 5 tips in terms of liver health, what do you think that those would be from your percentage?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would check out the Canadian Liver Foundation's web pages, because there's a lot of really great nutritional information on the website. But for tips for healthy eating to prevent liver disease, then besides the Canadian Liver Foundation sources, Dietitians of Canada and Health Canada have lots of good resources. So eating healthy would include that half a plate of fruits and vegetables that I've been talking about. So that's really key. And then making sure that you eat a variety of plant-based proteins, because a focused diet is shown to be healthier. So what do I mean by that? Lots of emphasis on eating nuts and seeds and lentils. In addition, if you want to eat meat, that's okay, but to make sure that you cut the extra fat off and choose lean cuts of meat in terms of if you do include that. So that's an important tip to keep your liver healthy too. So now, do you mean the sources of information, or what is like where to get the information, or do you mean what they should eat?
I guess maybe probably what they should eat as well. I think you highlighted the first part of the question, but yeah, perhaps also generally what a healthy diet could look like if you were to kind of break it up into a day of eating patterns.
Yeah, so
may help.
Every meal, a source of fruit or vegetable would be a good choice. So like an example would be healthy breakfast. If you like breakfast cereals, like an oatmeal cereal mixed with some fruit, or like a ready to eat without sugar sweetened, add it to it, like bran buds or bran flakes, add it with fruits and vegetables. Sorry, not vegetables, like berries or bananas added on top of that with a milk on the side would be a good choice, or whole wheat toast with some cheese. Or frankly, even for example, like a wrap. If you like wraps, you can make your own wraps for breakfast. Take the egg yolk out of the egg and have egg whites mixed with that with a variety of shredded lettuce and different vegetables, shredded carrots. That could be a really good healthy breakfast as well. For lunch, again, making sure that no matter what you like to eat, whether it's chicken or if you want to even eat a chicken sandwich, you can make your own with a bun and have your own grilled chicken and put lettuce inside of that. Would be a good choice with maybe a piece of fruit, or that might be when you want your 4 ounces of juice. And then for dinner, casseroles are great so long as you mix them with different vegetables. You could have with whole wheat noodles mixed in with that. Lasagnas even could be fine, but a vegetarian based lasagna would be a good choice. So all of those would be a good idea. It is okay to have red meat. And I see that one of the questions is, if it's in moderation, how would you define moderation? 3 to 4 ounces maximum, like at a set serving. So anything bigger than 3 to 4 ounces is going to take up more than a quarter of your plate. So whatever plate size you use, take the piece of meat and put it on your plate and eyeball it. Is that taking up more than, max a third of your plate? And that doesn't mean, my husband likes to go vertical when I talk to him like that. So you also don't want it to be like that much above the plate as well. So that's moderation. I got asked a question about why take the egg yolk out of egg white. There's a lot of, I think an egg yolk some of the time is okay, but egg yolk has a lot of cholesterol and saturated fat in there. So, for example, sometimes people like to eat 3 eggs at one time. Maybe take the egg yolk out of one of them. Yolk has a lot of good benefits. It's full of iron, for example, and it does have other nutrients. So egg whites, you don't have to worry about cholesterol or worry as much about the saturated fat associated with that. So maybe do it alternatively, to do that. So it's not mandatory to take egg yolk out always the time. And then somebody else asked me if is whey protein a good way to obtain protein supplementation? It's hard to get. Yeah. Whey protein, or making yourself like a protein like shake. So, and that's also a good way to get like some vegetables in, make your own shake. Use your blender, throw in some broccoli, throw in a little bit of whey powder. You can mix it with milk and make yourself, or you can make a blueberry shake with yogurt, throw in some blueberries this summer, or orange or bananas, and make yourself a shake. And you could add a little bit of whey protein. A combined mixture of proteins, a casein whey based powder might be a little bit better. Whey is good for facilitating gastric emptying. So that's good. You won't feel as full, which I think is good. But casein and whey together both have some advantages. I'm not against a specific one, but I wouldn't try to substitute your whey protein for eating plant-based sources of protein. Make sure you do a little bit of both. But an 8-ounce shake that you make yourself out of vegetables or fruit, so I'd be okay with fruit, would be a good way to meet your protein needs for breakfast too, if like you are on the go. I get up really early in the morning and start really early, and a lot of times I will drink, make my own shake in the morning before I go to work and drink it like for a few hours, because I'm not a big breakfast person, but I know that it's good for me to try to do that. Another question is, how do I feel about liver patients going on the keto diet? The keto diet does have some benefits about suppressing appetite if you're not using it to lose weight, but you're just using it as a way to manage your overall metabolic health. I think it's okay. And what do I mean by that? I mean that a keto diet, so long as you're still getting about 25 to 30% of your calories from carbohydrate, that would be okay for someone with mild liver disease. And a lot of people go on keto diets to help control their blood lipids, for example, to help control problems with diabetes that they might get as a secondary complication of being overweight. And so it has some benefits about improving the metabolic profile of, helps with insulin resistance. But if you're combining that with like one of those diets that also says intermittent fasting, I'm not keen on the combination, or on intermittent fasting diets, period, if you're talking about fasting more than 10 to 12 hours per day, because of the issue with the lean muscle breakdown. So it is okay. Nem asked, is it okay to have red meat? It is. And as I mentioned, the red meat issue is about, 4 ounces at most as a serving size, and don't take up more than 1/3 of your plate. And, a few times a week is okay, but please try to mix the red meat the other like 3 or 4 days a week with plant-based sources of protein, such as nuts and seeds, lentils, chickpeas, that kind of thing, because they're really healthy, or other choices as well. Like soy is a good, and tofu are really good choices too. So not 7 days a week. 3 days a week is probably okay if it's a lean cut.
There were some talks in the past where people even asked, or I guess for those who aren't familiar with what 4 ounces of chicken breast would be, would the, I guess, using the hand kind of still be considered? So I guess you take us quickly as to what it all kind of looks like in terms of portion.
So like your hand here, take a look at the top part of your hand, and it really shouldn't be that much bigger, because if you put a plate around that would be about 1/3 of a plate at most. Not bigger than your hand, and not thicker, as I mentioned, about like this. So not thicker than your thumb. Mm-hmm. You put the meat beside your thumb, and if that meat's like vertical above that, then that's probably too thick of a piece. Boneless chicken, some of that could be the bone, but boneless chicken would be a way for you to be able to measure it. But don't go vertical on your plate, okay? Because my husband likes to do that, and vertical just defeats the purpose. Another question is about estrogen and soy, a concern for males. There's a lot of controversy over estrogen and soy in foods, and people are concerned if you eat excessive amount of soy products that you can have an increased risk for estrogen-like effects. It would be minimal for a male. You would have to, in order to have, even in females, see some differences in soy products. We're talking about basically in excess of 3 cups of a soy-based product a day might be associated for females with some changes in estrogen, but for males, it'd probably be a bigger size. So it's unlikely you're going to drink 3 cups a day every day of a soy-based drink in order to achieve that. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. Lots of populations in Asia take tofu every day, and they take 2 to 3 ounces of tofu every day mixed in with different foods and don't see any major effects. And there's other things in soy, like the calcium, like the quality of the protein, that are good for your muscles. So I would just not drink in excess of 3 cups a day. For autoimmune liver diseases, I wouldn't say there's a specific diet specifically for that, but if you combine like a NAFLD type of approach where you're trying to optimize the quantity of fruits and vegetables every day, that will be helpful, because antioxidants are really good for the immune system, as are omega-3 fatty acids. So combining your diet with foods that are higher in omega-3s like fish are really, really important for an individual with any autoimmune disease, and staying away from simple sugars, because a lot of autoimmune diseases, individuals may have problems with insulin and then therefore have problems with glycemic control. Oh, the sodium thing is really hard. And I love that question about suggestions on how to eat low sodium. And that's food preparation at home, right? Because as soon as you buy any kind of processed food, you'll have a hard time meeting that 1500. So from spaghetti sauce to making your own spaghetti sauce, if at all possible, is a good idea. Avoiding canned products, even the low sodium soups, commercial soups, is a problem, because they often add more potassium to substitute for the sodium, and so it can be problematic with some people with ascites to do that. So the best message I have is try to eat as much fresh food as you can. Home cooking is a better choice, and try to avoid canned products if you can, because they're the ones that are going to have the hidden sodium. Looking at the food labels, and you'll see something called %DV, and when it comes to sodium, try to choose something that says it has less than 5%, because that will be a low source of sodium. But really, home cooking is the best way to try to reduce that. Obviously, you won't add it. Be careful of your seasonings. Make sure that you choose spices that are the pure spice and not allspice, because they could have a lot of salt. Again, my family members like to think sea salt's healthier than regular sodium, but sodium is sodium is sodium. So yeah, it's very important to check food labels wherever you can and to compare for sodium. And it is very surprising. You could have 3 bottles of tomato paste and see quite a variety. So looking at that food label and looking for %DV of less than 5% is a good idea for those. Dried fruits like dates, apricots, and mango, they're fine. And in many ways, they can offer some really good sources of nutrition, like dried apricots are a great source of dietary iron, which is good. But you got to be careful with some of those dried fruits. They have a lot of sugar coating on top of them. So just make sure the ones that you're purchasing for like the dates or the apricots or the mangoes, that you look to see if they have lots of extra sugar sprinkled on them, because some of them do and many of them don't. But just it's important for you to have a look-see at those kind of things. And I think there was only one other question about PBC and fibrosis, NAFLD. So for primary biliary cirrhosis, I think the most important thing beyond trying to keep a healthy body weight, because if you combine that with NAFLD, is making sure that you get enough vitamin D and calcium, because your bones can be adversely impacted. And so making sure that you check with your doctor and your dietitian, but a vitamin D supplement between 1,000 and 2,000 IUs per day is probably a good idea to optimize bone health. And then trying to keep away from those extra sugar sweetened beverages. Watch your jams. When you're choosing jam, look for jams that don't have extra sugar added to them. And otherwise, that the principles of what's healthy eating is pretty much the same, but supplemental D can really be helpful for fibrosis in the liver. I think that covers most of the question, Nem, and probably Heather's back on anyway.
Perfect. Well, we'll end it there with just for the sake of time, and we'll probably have Heather join the breakout rooms. Anyway, but that will be that does kind of conclude our Q&A for the hour there. So I do want to thank Dr. Major for the great presentation. Of course, Heather wasn't able to join us earlier, there's technical difficulties, but she may be able to join the breakout sessions as well. So I mentioned earlier, the session will be available on the CLF website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel over the next several days. What we'll do in terms of the next one here, we do have some upcoming sessions for those who have joined today. So do keep an eye out for upcoming living with liver disease sessions throughout the year. Again, we are trying out this new approach for 2022. So we're going to have more information on these sessions on the liver.ca/LWLD. So it's pretty much living with liver disease in simple acronym there page at the start of each month. So if you don't see any sessions posted yet, or there's minimal information, please check again in a few weeks as we are likely finalizing topics and of course trying to finalize speakers as well, so which takes a little more time. So keep an eye on that website and of course on our liver.ca webpage and of course in our social media channels as well. All right, we're going to switch on to the breakout room. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a button that says breakout room. It is a kind of a 4-square button there. So please click the button and give it a few seconds before you see different groups available. The groups will be split into regions or provinces or cluster, depending on how many people we have available. So once again, we'd suggest you join the group that best fits your geographical location. And we will have our wonderful CLF staff members across the country moderating or being there in the breakout rooms to assist. So just give it a few seconds there until the rooms get set up. And once you see the groups on your screen, please choose your group and click the join button on the right. And that will take you directly to the breakout rooms with the others. And some of us will be there with you. And then we'll conclude and we'll come back for just a quick minute after the 25 minutes to kind of discuss conclusions and some other aspects. For attending this session tonight. Again, should you have any other additional questions or comments or want to stay up to date with liver health information, do connect with us on our social media channels or via email as well at clf@liver.ca.